Hello and welcome back to Pragmatic Alchemy. I am your host, Courtney, and today's episode is one that I have been looking forward to for weeks. It's a topic that I am very much a beginner on, although part of my beginner's story really started to take shape in the shop of Dana Cooper, who owns the Ritualist here in New Paltz, New York. When I got my second tarot deck from her shop, and really started. That was a very important kind of turning point because I learned for real, that having the right deck makes a big difference. If anybody heard a little barky bark in the background, that's Kirby. Kirby will also be joining us for the podcast today. But without further ado, Dana, welcome. And thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So, the mission of the Pragmatic Alchemy podcast is mindful well-being in everyday life. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the shop. But really what I'm hoping to spend some time talking about today is the way tarot incorporates into your well-being practice. And I will make special note that I noticed in your bio that you are part-time business witch, part-time plant whisperer. So I hope that we're going to talk about witchery and plants as part of well-being as well. So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I kind of organically came into the whole world of witchcraft, spirituality, magical practice in my 20s. So not all that long ago. I always, feel like I am still a beginner in many ways as well. And I'm learning to get past the imposter syndrome and past the idea that, being a beginner or being a student is a bad thing in any sense, because it's absolutely not. Um, but yeah, I kind of came to this world while I was living in Brooklyn and working in the music industry, and was just feeling really burnt out and stressed, as most of us are most of the time. I think, I loved my career, but it left a lot, that I was searching for. I didn't feel a sense of community. And so I one day just kind of happened upon this amazing magical healing space in Brooklyn called Maha Rose. And they offered workshops and classes and things like that. And so I went to one, and I feel like my whole life was just blown wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Just sitting in circle with other like-minded folk was really just a new concept to me. And it really just kind of answered all those questions I'd had about how do I find community, and how do I sort of learn new tools for self-soothing and taking better care of myself and de-stressing in this, fast-paced environment that I live in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's really what got me hooked. And from there, it just kind of spiraled. I got super interested in astrology and did a little bit of both kind of informal and formal learning with that. Discovered tarot at a moon circle I used to attend, and just again, just like sort of went down a rabbit hole of, finding all of these really amazing practices that I either didn't know about or wasn't, hadn't used in my own life before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And was really just hooked. And so I've spent the past, I don't know, 6, 7, I guess, years just exploring everything that I can get my hands on,
Mm-hmm.
finding what resonates with me, and really just kind of made it my mission through the shop that I've opened to kind of permission others to interact with these tools as well, and sort
Mm-hmm.
of try to spread the word that, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to had, grown up with this, or, been using tarot since you were 15 to
Mm-hmm.
engage
Mm-hmm.
in these practices. They can really be healing for so many different people at all different levels and all
Yeah.
different experiences.
One of the things that I encounter, so I teach meditation and mindfulness. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I will frequently try to disclaim for folks right up in the beginning is that from my perspective, meditation is not a thing that you ever really master. because our brains are going to show up differently every day. And so
Mhm.
you can learn a lot of tools to help facilitate that practice in the best way you know how, but it doesn't seem to me that anybody's ever going to become an expert meditator. I like to believe that even the teachers that I follow still get like pissed off in traffic sometimes. So do you find that when you say like, people, or even just speaking about your own journey, that you still feel like you're learning, do you feel like there's a place of mastery for some of these practices, or does it have that same kind of feel of it's just going to show up differently all the time and we just roll with it?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. One thing that a tarot teacher of mine actually said up front when I started this course a while ago was that they don't believe in the term expert when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to any of this stuff, because expert implies that there is an endpoint of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
their belief was that we never reach an endpoint. We're always learning and evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, what you're saying absolutely resonates. And I would agree that, yeah, there is no sort of mastery. So many of these tools, tarot included, are, all about tapping into our intuition. And so
Mm-hmm.
they come from us and our inner wisdom and our lived experience. And so our, relationship to the tarot and the cards is always going to be changing and evolving. There's
Mm-hmm.
always new layers to unpeel and new things to learn. And so, yeah, I don't think there really is an endpoint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do you utilize tarot in your life? Like, what does that look like for you? What shape does it take?
Yeah, so I try to show up to my deck as often as possible.
Mhm.
Some phases of life it's every day, and some it is certainly not. But
Mhm.
I love to just pull a card in the morning and kind of sit with it for a moment. Usually, I'll ask something really kind of open ended, like what's the energy for the day, or what's something I should focus on today, and just see what comes up. And from there, sometimes I like to just journal and see what comes out. It's really helped me just develop a deeper relationship with the tarot and with my
Mhm.
deck, to just make those associations with different cards,
Mhm.
and see how they resonate in my own life. And I'll come to my deck too with more specific questions sometimes, or if I'm kind of going through something and need a little bit of guidance. It really is just such a beautiful tool for self reflection and, yeah, just a little bit of extra kind of hand holding and guidance when you feel kind of stuck.
Mhm. Mhm. I like that. Yeah, that the stuckness. I think that there's a I'll see if I can explain it this way. There's a meme I've seen before that says if you don't know which choice to choose, when you have multiple options, you don't know which one to choose, to toss a coin, because when the coin is in the air, you'll know what you really want. And I feel like there's an element of that in when you're reading the cards, when you're seeing what they're telling you, because there is so much personal interpretation that can be the motivator out of that stuck place, because you kind of know what you want the cards to say. Like even if you can't really
Absolutely.
admit that to yourself in the moment, like there's an element of like this is what I hope shows up. Yeah.
Definitely. And yeah, I think ultimately above all, the cards are just a way to tap into our intuition. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's taking that inner knowing we already have and kind of pulling it out of us through imagery
Hmm.
and words. Yeah, definitely.
Now, you've referred to my deck a couple of times, but I have to assume you have more than one, or do you have one that's
Yeah.
your sort of your beloved deck, and then you have other collector decks, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I have amassed a bunch of decks, from the shop, of course. Um, Honestly, I find myself often going back to, the Rider Waite Smith deck, which
Hmm.
is what I
Hmm.
learned on,
Hmm.
just because I am still learning in a lot of ways. And I find that, seeing that sort of traditional imagery in front
Hmm.
of me helps me.
Okay.
Kind of helps me, bring me back to what I've learned about the cards and also the associations that I've personally kind of built around those cards.
Hmm.
So I do use that deck quite a bit still. I actually have the, Centennial Edition, which is the same as the traditional Rider Waite, but it's called the Smith Waite, which,
Okay.
I appreciate. Basically, the Rider Waite deck from 1909 was named after the, publisher and the commissioner of the deck.
Hmm.
But, Pamela Coleman Smith, who is the illustrator, her name's not in there. So she
Right.
never got credit for her illustrations.
Hmm. Hmm.
So basically, they just re released the deck in 2009 as like an anniversary edition. and called
Okay.
it the Smith-Waite deck to finally give her some credit.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
Long
I like to
overdue.
use
Yeah.
exactly. So I like to use that. And my other favorite that I've been using a lot lately is called the Intuitive Night Goddess deck.
Oh.
And yeah, it's one that we carry at the shop and that I actually found through the shop, which is
Mhm.
a really beautiful story. But basically, its creator lives locally here. So she
Oh, okay.
came into the shop shortly after I opened last year and didn't even mention her deck until the very end. You know, we were chatting about all kinds of things and she bought some stuff and we really kind of connected on a lot of different levels. And then she kind of casually mentioned, I also have a deck if you're interested in checking it out. And I did, and it blew me away. And so that's been a more recent favorite of mine.
Okay.
Again, based on the Rider Waite Smith kind of interpretations, but just with
Mhm, mhm.
beautiful artwork and some updated language and stuff.
Okay. Okay. It's funny. I am reading a book right now called Positively Tarot, and of
Mhm.
course, now that I'm sitting here, the author's name is escaping me. But so I was reading it the other night, and my husband was in the room, and he asked me. He was like, "So, is there like a standard? Like, is there like one deck that is the deck?" And so I was telling him about the Rider Waite Smith deck, and I said to him, I was like, "I
Mhm.
feel like I probably should get that because I don't have that."
Mhm.
I have two decks right now. The first one, what I was kind of mentioning about being in your shop, the first one I got during the pandemic when everything was kind of locked down. It just felt like a moment where I was like, I need to invite something new into my life. And I'd had readings before, but I had never practiced on my own. I never had my own deck and I never did my own card pulls. And so because it was the pandemic, I ended up buying a deck online called Spirit Song, and it's a
Mhm.
beautiful deck. It's watercolors, and all of it has been reinterpreted into the animal world. So all of
Oh,
the suits
nice.
reflect different. Aquatic creatures, land creatures, air creatures, and the major arcana are all different both celestial and kind of earthbound bodies. And it's the artwork is stunning, and I really love it. Like it's so beautiful. But it wasn't until I came into your shop and got the Fox Hollow deck that
Mhm.
I like those readings are just so much better. And I think part of it is her booklet
Yeah.
because she says fuck a lot, and so do I. And I like tarot that like meets me where I'm at.
Mhm.
But that was really kind of, because I'd always heard like, when you're shopping for a deck, you should really let it speak to you. And
Mhm.
because I had gotten that first deck remotely, had purchased it online, I didn't really get that experience until coming into your shop and getting my second deck. And then I really did see the power of that
Mhm.
when you set your eyeballs on a deck that says, "Hey, I'm yours."
Yeah.
That the experience is just so much richer.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the imagery and the artwork really has to resonate with you in order for you to want to show up to it, regularly and to kind of connect with it on that level. So yeah, definitely. I always encourage people to, pick up a deck and look through it first if you're able before you purchase it. Just
Mhm.
so you know what you're getting into. Find the right one for you.
Yeah. When you have folks come into the shop, particularly newbies that are looking to get started, what aside from, following your intuition when a deck is speaking to you, what other pieces of advice do you give people for getting started, for starting to learn, the words and the imagery and that kind of stuff? What tools do you offer?
Yeah, so I always recommend choosing a deck with a nice, thorough guidebook
Mhm.
if you're brand new. And that is because then you can pull a card and just flip open the book and read about it. And everything you need is right there. It kind of comes as a package deal, it's all set for you. So you can just dive right in. I think that's a great way to start learning is to kind of use the book that was intended for that deck and see what the creator has to say about each card as you pull them. And from there, once you have that sort of foundational understanding, you can add in your own interpretations or see how the
Mhm.
cards, resonate with you. Maybe certain images in each card kind of jump out at you and you can add your own kind of layers of meaning.
Mhm.
But yeah, the guidebook is really a great place to start. And there's absolutely no shame in using it. I think that's something that I had to get over as a beginner. Seeing so many of my friends just pull a card and immediately have these, associations to pull out of their brain, I kind of felt, silly, like opening the book every time. But you have to start somewhere, and I think that's a beautiful place to start.
Mhm,
That's what
mhm.
the guidebooks are there for. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite card?
Ooh, I have been really feeling connected to the magician
Okay.
lately.
And can you tell
Um,
folks a little tiny bit about what the magician symbolizes?
yeah, so the magician is a major arcana card. It's actually the card number one. So it's the
Mhm,
second card in the deck because we do have zero as the
mhm,
fool.
mhm,
And the magician is all about, well, alchemy, which is a great word for this podcast, right? So it's about sort of taking these intangible rather, things like our thoughts and ideas and sort of the magic that goes on in our brains and in our bodies and transforming them into tangible things.
mhm,
So
mhm,
it's about creation,
mhm,
and calling upon, the tools that we have at our disposal to really create physical, material, tangible things in the real world.
mhm,
Um, and I kind of feel like that is what my shop is. And so think that's why I've been feeling so connected to the magician over the past couple of years.
mhm,
But it
mhm,
really does feel like I took this sort of nebulous thing, all these dreams and ideas that I had floating around for so long, and used different tools. Used my two hands, but also used my intuition and all these other tools, at our disposal, and created a physical thing in the form of a shop.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you opened in a pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah, so how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything else,
Okay,
so
good
it just
point.
kind of was what it was, I think. It's funny how it all came together really because I had been dreaming up Ritualist since 2018.
Mhm,
And, you know, it became really clear pretty quickly that this was something I really had to do. It was like the
mhm.
next step on my journey. You try to push it down and you try to keep going with your day job, and it just keeps kind of creeping up. So
Yes, yes.
there came a point where I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and I knew that I wanted Ritualist to exist in physical form here in New Paltz, which is my hometown.
Mhm,
My husband and I had been talking for years at that point about moving up here, and we just kind of couldn't find the right time to actually make it happen.
mhm,
Um, but I kind of kept putting the shop on the back burner because of that. I kept saying,
mhm.
well, when we're ready to move, I'll open the shop.
Okay.
And by the end of 2019, I just couldn't wait any longer.
Mhm, mhm.
It just became my obsession and, it was at the forefront of my mind all the time. And so I decided to start it online.
Okay,
And
I
I,
don't think I
yeah,
realized that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So early 2020, I actually like did all the paperwork and created, the LLC and all that fun
Mhm.
stuff.
The businessy end.
Yeah.
I do know.
Yep. And really kind of made it a reality, even if no one really knew about it yet. So
Mhm, mhm,
I took those first few months of 2020 to, get the website up and running, which was a whole process as someone who does not know a whole lot about technology and websites and stuff. And started, ordering inventory and just kind of keeping it in my apartment and
mhm.
getting ready to launch this online shop. And of course, the pandemic hit and it was like, wow, okay, like what strange timing that I decided to start an online business when everyone else is having to pivot to
Right,
online.
right, right.
So,
Yeah.
it worked out really well in the sense that I did have this brand new project to kind of keep me grounded during the early days of the pandemic.
Mhm, mhm,
Once it felt safe enough, I was able to kind of, walk to the post office and drop off
mhm.
orders and things. And so it was something that, really kind of did help me keep a little bit of a grip on reality during those early
Yeah, I can
days.
imagine, I can imagine, and just to
Yeah.
be in that juxtaposition of opening something, creating something,
Hmm.
expanding on something when everything else felt like it was constricting and turning inward, that had to be
Yeah.
really kind of powerful to be a part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a strange feeling. And of course, um, I didn't want to focus on that while the world was crumbling, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm, mhm.
by the time the website was really ready, it was May. And so kind of felt like we had settled in a little bit. And
Mhm.
really, I guess if there ever was a time to share tools for sort of healing and self
Yes.
reflection with people, that was maybe it. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it all kind of worked out.
It's
Yeah.
funny, our timelines coalesce almost to the minute in that I first had the idea for this practice around 2018.
Hmm.
Sat with it. I don't think I spoke it to another human for about 8 or 9 months.
Hmm.
And then it would take, I told a girlfriend of mine on New Year's Eve, actually, New Year's Eve going into 2019, I told my friend, I said, I've got this idea. And then it was about another month and a half before I even told my husband. But
Hmm.
it was, I know that feeling that you're saying of like, just a knowing that I had to do this. Um,
Yeah.
and then really kind of getting started during the pandemic and noticing kind of what you're saying, like you were giving people tools for healing, but there's this bittersweet part of that because I felt very much the same way. Like I was happy that I was here to help people in a time of struggle, but it did feel a little bit bittersweet that I was building something strong, because
Hmm.
people were struggling so much. And that's always
Yeah.
felt a little, I've had a hard time with that in my own journey a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Now, in the shop, I do want to come back to tarot a little bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the shop because just sitting where I am right now, my eyes fall on crystals that I've bought in your shop and some dried herbs and flowers that I've bought in your shop. So, what are some of the tools that you do offer, and what does your practice with those tools look like?
Yeah. So we sell tarot and oracle decks, which of course is what we're here to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
I find it really important to keep a floor copy of each one open as well, like we talked about, so people can actually interact with them
Mm-hmm.
before they choose one. We also sell altar candles, all different types of altar candles. And one of my favorite brands, Snakes for Hair, which is based in Brooklyn, makes really, really beautiful collaged candles that are created for different intentions. And some are created, modeled after certain major arcana cards. I think
Okay.
that's really cool. Um, but those are really powerful. And I have one actually behind me here that's
Hmm.
abundance.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, they're beautiful. They have beautiful meaning behind them and so much love put into them. So that's kind of one of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite offerings that we
Mm-hmm.
have. We also sell books and zines on all kinds of things from astrology to herbalism to, just tapping into your creativity and things like that. So a wide range of topics.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, Crystals, as you mentioned, we've got our little crystal table all set up with,
mhm,
info on each one so people can kind of pick and choose what resonates with them. We sell herbal tinctures,
mhm,
which another one of my favorite things to use in my own practice, just reminding myself to take them as needed.
mhm,
I
mhm,
think it's a really beautiful way to get some plant medicine. Super easy and accessible. You can throw it in your bag and take it with you. It's a
mhm,
little bit
mhm.
quicker and easier than like brewing some tea or something like that.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah.
And you have cleansing tools, right?
Yes,
Herbs for
yeah.
cleansing?
So,
Mhm, mhm,
yep. So we sell dried herbs and Palo Santo as well for
mhm.
burning and clearing energy out of your space.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love your shop so much.
Thank you so
It's one
much.
of my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know that I knew about the candles. So I have been feeling very connected with the star. So I
Mm,
do you have a star candle? Because I might need to
nice.
stop in.
We do not, but
Okay.
I actually just pulled the star before I came on here. So,
Really? That's very
yeah.
interesting. That's
Yeah,
very
it's
interesting.
always a beautiful card to see. And as I was actually getting kind of the website up and running back in 2020, I had a little one on one phone session with a tarot reader that I love. And she pulled the star for my business as kind of the
Oh,
overall
yeah.
card. And
That seems
I really love
auspicious.
that.
Yes.
It really
Yes.
does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So let's
Yeah.
come back to tarot a little bit. One of the things that you just mentioned was having tarot and oracle decks. So for folks that don't
Hmm.
know the difference, can you give a quick sort of indication of how they're related and how they're different?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all tarot decks, as we kind of touched on before, are pretty much modeled on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck from the early
Mm-hmm.
1900s. They all have the same kind of format or structure in that they have 78 cards. They have the major and minor arcana. The minor arcana is split into four suits. Um, so there really is like a structure to all tarot decks. Sometimes creators will play with the names of cards a little bit to
Mm-hmm.
kind of modernize them or update them. But generally, you'll see those cards that you've probably seen in movies and in pop culture, like
Mm-hmm.
the Empress and the Devil and the Fool and things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. The
So
devil used to
yeah,
scare me every time it came up in a reading. I
yeah,
always took it as
that's
like a foreboding of doom, which it's
yeah.
not,
I
but that was
mean,
always my early interpretation of it. Yeah.
right, right. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but yeah, that's been one of my like biggest lessons with the tarot is just that there are no like good and bad cards and
Mm-hmm.
they're not ominous, they're here to support even those
Mm-hmm.
ones with sort of intimidating
Mm-hmm.
names.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
um but yeah, so yeah, all tarot decks kind of have that same structure.
Mm-hmm.
Oracle decks, on the other hand, are sort of a free form type of deck. So, Oracle decks can have any number of cards, they can be built on any theme. There really are no rules whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are meant to be used in the same way as tarot decks. So,
Mm-hmm.
generally, you will shuffle the deck and kind of use your intuition to pull a card or pull a few cards. Um, but yeah, there's just no like specific format. So there's just it's a free for all, which is
Okay.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We have an oracle deck, for example, called the Prism Oracle. That's really great for beginners. And every card is a different color or a different hue and
Mm-hmm.
has an emotion or an energetic state on it and a
Mm-hmm.
symbol.
Okay.
So there'll be like a red card for passion or a
Mm-hmm.
black card for mystery. And so it kind
Okay.
of, shows the correlation between color and states of being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's a free form deck. It's based on color.
Mm-hmm.
Another oracle deck might be based on plant allies or it might be
Okay.
based on mantras. So, yeah, there's no rules with oracle decks.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I really knew what the difference was, so that's why I snuck that question in there.
Yeah, totally. People ask all the time. Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like, you can really go either way and you can use tarot and oracle in tandem too. You can pull,
Mm-hmm.
one from each deck or use them kind of interchangeably or go to whichever is calling you that day.
Okay.
But yeah.
Talking about interchangeable, you mentioned in your bio you're a double Capricorn. I have a
Yes.
Capricorn moon.
Ah, nice.
Yes, Aquarius sun, Capricorn moon. But I'm
Okay.
curious, where do you find the intersection between astrology and tarot? Do you find that there's an
Yeah.
intersection between those things?
Definitely. There is definitely crossover in that, certain cards are ruled by certain signs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
with Libra, we have justice, things like that. With Virgo, we have the hermit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are a lot of correspondences too with the elements.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the tarot, the four suits in the minor arcana each correspond to a different element. In astrology, we've got the elements associated with different signs. So, earth
Mm-hmm.
signs, air
Mm-hmm.
signs, etc. So, yeah, there is quite a lot of crossover. We do a monthly new moon circle at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that, we focus a lot on the sign that the moon is in at
Mm-hmm.
that time. And I always kind of bring the tarot card for that sign into it.
Okay.
So, for example, our last circle was on the Virgo new moon.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked a lot about Virgo energy. And we talked a bit about the Hermit as being the major arcana card associated with
Mm-hmm.
Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how, might we bring the Hermit into our lives during this new moon and during this season of Virgo?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there is a lot of ways that you can work with both astrology and tarot
Mm-hmm.
together.
I recently just learned that the 5, 6, and 7 of swords are associated with Aquarius.
Mm.
And I think I like the 6.
Sixes are nice.
Yeah, I like the 6 of swords.
Yep.
That one, when I read the description, I was like, okay, yeah, that that feels right. There feels like a
Yeah.
rightness to that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So can you just really briefly tell folks what the suits are for
Yeah,
folks that might not know?
absolutely. Yeah, so we have the wands, which is associated with the element of fire.
Mm-hmm.
With that, we get themes of sort of passion and drive and desire and creativity, all those kind of fiery things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a very action oriented suit. Um, with the swords, we are connecting with the element of air.
Mm-hmm.
So we have themes of anything relating to the mind, our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, ideas, communication, how we, process things, research, things like that.
Hence the Aquarius.
Um,
That makes sense. Yeah. Air sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. We have the pentacles, which are
Mm-hmm.
associated with earth.
Mm-hmm.
So we get themes of, work and goals and, finances and things like that, but also just resources in general and
Mm-hmm.
kind of material possessions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we have the cups, which are associated with water.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, we get themes of emotion and, matters of the heart, our intuition and kind of softness and fluidity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love all of that. I love all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whoop, hi Kirby.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
He says hello.
He does say hello. If I was recording from home, my ancient black lab would just be pacing behind us. And so
Aw.
we would hear her nails
Yeah.
clicking on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, in terms of your personal journeys, you mentioned a couple of the things that you found a little bit challenging getting over using the book,
hmm
not associating certain cards with negative outcomes. Are there any other, I don't know, lessons that really stood out for you that have helped shape this practice?
Yeah, I would say a couple of sort of key takeaways and kind of good things to, I guess, take note of as a beginner would be one, that tarot does not predict the future, at least not
You
in
stole my question.
specifics.
That was my next
Yes.
question, was talk to us about divination versus
Yes.
yeah.
So I primarily use tarot as a tool for self reflection,
Mhm.
usually in the moment. So in the present tense, not necessarily looking to the future, at least not too far ahead.
Mhm.
I turn to it when I need some guidance, like I mentioned before, on a specific issue, or if I'm just kind of wanting a message for the day,
Mhm.
that kind
Mhm.
of thing. I think that tarot can speak to the future in terms of the potential
Mhm.
that's awaiting us. Um, a good example of that would be I like to do like a year ahead spread. So you can pull a card for each month of the coming year. I like
Oh,
to
okay.
do that, in January. And I think, in that case, whatever card we pull can show us sort of, yeah, the potential that's available to us or just the possibility, of what
Mhm.
may happen. But
Mhm.
I don't think that tarot is meant to be used to predict the future,
Mhm. Mhm.
or at least to predict specific outcomes. And
Mhm.
that is because we have free will.
Right.
So, the future is unwritten, it is
Mhm. Mhm.
uncertain. We do not know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really beautiful and important thing to remember when we first come to tarot, because it's so easy to, pull the devil or the death card or the tower and say, oh, cool, that's my card for the day. I'm going to have a terrible day,
Right.
or that's my card for next month. It's going to be
Mhm.
an awful month.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I don't think that that's what tarot is meant for. It's not meant to predict what's going to happen. I think it's here to pull our attention to a certain sort of theme or area.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and yeah, those traditionally kind of scary or challenging cards, I guess this could be the second kind of key takeaway,
Mhm.
but they're here to support us as well.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
think there are any good cards or bad cards.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think even those cards that people like to kind of demonize, they're here to help.
Right. Right.
We have to remember that the tarot represents the full spectrum of human experience.
Right.
And so it's not all going to be rainbows and butterflies.
Right, right,
It's
right,
not
right.
all going to be the Empress. um,
Right, right.
there are challenging parts of life, and there
Mhm.
are shadowy things we have to, look at. And so those cards kind of may call our attention to that. But yeah, they're not a bad omen in
Mhm,
any
mhm.
sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. One of the
Yeah.
questions that I'll sometimes ask, I'll feel an impulse to, ask the question, "What should I do?" And then I
Hmm.
feel like that gets a little bit into that, like, I want the card to predict the future. And so one of the ways I've worked on sort of reframing that when I do a pull is to ask, "What resources do I have available right now? Or
Mm.
what should I be listening for or looking for
Yeah.
as I make this decision?" And try to get more into that deeper intuitive knowing, so it'll
Hmm.
help me see like what resources I already have, what things I already know, what values are important to me, but not necessarily you should do this thing.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. I hope it was Lindsay Mack who mentioned this. I'm hopefully attributing it to the right person, but Lindsay
Mhm.
Mack is one of my favorite tarot readers and teachers. And I mention her all the time in Moon Circle and at the shop just because I've learned so much from her.
Mhm.
But I believe it was her who, mentioned that when you are making a decision, you can kind of pull a card around each sort of potential path or avenue
Mm. Mhm.
and sort of
Mhm.
see like what the potential is there. So
Mhm.
what is the
Mhm.
potential outcome if I choose A? What is the
Mhm.
potential outcome for B? And I think, yeah, that's another way to sort of explore each
Mhm.
option without necessarily asking the deck, what should I do? What
Right,
is the
right.
right one?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. You
Yeah.
mentioned spreads before. Do you have favorite
Hmm.
spreads? And can you just sort of explain what a spread is for listeners that might not know?
Yeah, so a spread is pulling a series. Ugh, Kirby, come on. He's not into it.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
okay.
a spread is pulling a series of cards together to sort of tell a larger narrative.
Mhm.
So it can be any number of cards, but basically they're all kind of showing you the bigger picture. So it's a little bit more in depth than just, say, pulling one single card.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the kind of go to that I feel like most people use is past, present, future.
Mhm.
And I have like a little bit of a riff on that I usually use, which is what is something that I'm ready to kind of shed or leave behind and move
Mhm.
away from for past?
Mhm.
What is sort of available to me right now, or what is the potential for me right in this present moment for present? And then for future would be what am I moving towards, or what am I being
Mhm.
called towards?
Oh, I
So
love
I
that.
think, yeah, that's a very simple but powerful spread that's really nice to use if you're like in a transitional moment or at a
Mhm.
crossroads, or you're just kind of like not sure what's next, or, at any like kind of meaningful moments too, like a birthday or,
Mhm.
something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned the new moon group that you have, and I've
Mhm.
been, I follow your socials, so I know you're gearing up for the most festive time of year, Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what are some of the things going on at the shop that some of our local listeners might want to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do hold a monthly new moon circle either on or around the new moon each month. It's been such a beautiful way to build community.
Hmm.
We've got a lot of the same folks that come month after month, but we also have new faces each time, and it's really just always so nourishing to
Hmm.
me,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
hopefully to our attendees as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it is very beginner friendly. If you've never attended a circle or any sort of gathering like that before, by all means, please join us.
Hmm.
Um, it's sort of a very casual, kind of laid back environment. So
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
no prior experience necessary.
Excellent.
Um, yeah, so that's sort of our most regular offering.
Hmm.
We also do aura photo pop-ups
I
from
was
time to
hoping you were going to
time.
mention that.
Yeah, we've got our next one coming up on October 16th. I
Hmm.
am very lucky in that my very dear friend is an aura photographer, and she is based in Brooklyn, so not too far away.
Hmm.
So we usually get her up here like every 2 months or so. She
Okay.
sets up a little tent in the shop and takes aura photos and does interpretations. it's a really fun experience if for those who haven't done it before.
And that's the photo that you sent me for this episode cover. That's
I
your
believe
aura
so.
photo, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yep, from
So
a couple times ago.
folks can look at the episode art for this episode if they want to see one version of what an aura photo would look
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
It's very cool. It captures your energy essentially.
Mhm.
Every color is associated with a different chakra and
Mhm.
therefore with different kind of themes or aspects of life. And so yeah, my friend Stephanie will take the photo and then, you wait for it to develop and she kind of interprets what energy you're sitting in now and what you're moving towards. It's a
Mhm.
really cool experience.
That's
It's always
awesome.
been very spot on for me.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, we've got that coming up next month. And then in October, as you mentioned, we have a couple kind of fun one-off things for Halloween.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we are showing a horror movie on October 8th. It's called The House of the Devil. It's a fun one for anyone who's a horror fan. Lots
Mhm.
of suspense. Last year, we showed a different kind of witchy movie every Saturday night in October, which
Yeah.
was super fun. So I'm excited to do that again this year.
And you show those
And
right in the
then
shop, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This year we're just gonna, I think, do the one and make it a little bit of a bigger
Okay.
experience rather than doing it every week. But
Mhm.
yeah, it'll be right in the shop. I've got a projector and we'll have
Okay.
snacks and yeah, can't wait for
Awesome.
that. And then we are doing a little Halloween party the Saturday before Halloween,
Okay.
October 29th. Just a little costume party, an excuse to dress up, and again we'll have snacks and drinks, and gonna set up a little DIY photo booth, and yeah, just always trying to gather people whenever I can.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mentioned that in your bio, just that the one of the missions that you have for the shop is to create this community. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It was never about just like, let me sell things to people.
Right.
It's always been about wanting to share things that I'm passionate about and that have, helped me and nourished
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
with others. And also, yeah, deepen that connection by having these events and things where we can have longer conversations and spend
Right.
more time together.
Yeah. And we didn't even get into witchcraft today, but anything you wanted to mention about that before we wrap up?
Yeah, I
Do you
mean, I
identify as a
think
specific kind of witch?
I jokingly but not jokingly have to just call myself a business witch at
Okay.
this point
Okay.
because it just feels like, as someone with 4 planets in Capricorn, it
Yeah.
just feels like
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
That's what you do. That's what you do.
I I've really kind of tried to lean into this role that kind of feels natural to me,
Mhm.
which is just being sort of a curator and someone who just wants to share things with others
Mm.
through my business. Yeah, whether
Mhm.
it's through Moon Circle or through talking to customers about decks or
Mhm.
tinctures or whatever it is. It's like something in me just, when I find something that really resonates and really kind of changes my life, I just want to I want everyone to know about it. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've done that, that's kind of what I've built my business on. And so, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
just going to go with the title of Business Witch.
All right. I like it. I like it. One of the things I
Yeah.
do when I'm not doing this is I teach at SUNY and I teach counselor educators. So
Uh-huh.
they're master's degree students that are going to become mental health counselors or school counselors. And
That's
towards the end of
amazing.
last semester, we got on a conversation about witchcraft. And one
Mm-hmm.
of my students, they were like, "Well, you're a little witchy." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm a fair amount witchy." And
Yeah.
so they said they were like, "Well, what is your witchcraft?" Like, so what is it? And I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
gestured, I said, we're healers, I said,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I feel like I'm a healing witch. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is what we do.
There are no rules and you can be an anything witch, I think.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
a lifestyle and it's a way of thinking and living and you can
Hmm.
apply it to pretty much anything. Yeah.
The fun thing about my witchiness is that I got here through Buddhism.
Mm.
Inadvertently,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
just really being more mindful helped me recognize our interconnection, both our human interconnection, but also our interconnection with all living things and with the planet, and so that was really the inroad for me. So I think
Mhm.
it's kind of fun that
Yeah.
I'm a witchy Buddhist.
Yeah,
'Cause people don't
absolutely. I love
necessarily think
that.
about those things going together, but for me, that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that. And without getting too into it, it's like I've had that conversation with so many people that there is no right or wrong way to be a witch, and a witch
Hmm.
can look like anything.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can be a witch and practice organized religion. You can be a
Hmm.
witch and be, an artist or a teacher or a student or anything,
Hmm. Hmm.
literally anything. You don't
Yeah.
have to dress a certain way, act a certain way, practice a certain way,
Right, right, right. Yeah. Although a cauldron would be nice. I would. I have a tiny little one, a wrought iron one that my Nana had. She had this like fake
Aw.
fireplace my whole childhood. And
Mhm.
when she moved out of her home last year, I found the little wrought iron cauldron, and
Aw, I love
that one
that.
I swiped for me because it was both really
Yeah.
sentimental. I had that childhood memory, but I was also like, all right, there's my cauldron.
Yes,
Now
that's
I have
really
it.
sweet. I love that.
Dana, was there anything that you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
I don't think so. This has been a great kind of well-rounded conversation about all the
Excellent.
things. Yeah.
Can you tell folks where they can find you,
Yeah, absolutely.
both physically and, in all other ways?
Right. Yeah. So our brick and mortar shop is at 72 Main Street in New Paltz, kind of right
Mhm,
on the main strip there.
mhm.
You can also shop online at ritualistshop.com. You'll find all the info on our events there as well. Right now, our upcoming events are all in person just because of the nature of them, but we do offer virtual events when we have like classes and workshops and things like that.
Excellent.
And we are on Instagram at ritualist_shop.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Although
you
I do
so
just, I'm
much.
so excited for your new space because it's so beautiful, but I do miss you being right
Thank you.
around the corner.
Yeah. Luckily, we're not too far away now,
No,
but
no,
I
no,
know
no.
what you mean.
I can
You got
still,
in your little bubble
yeah.
and yeah.
It was always like a 1-2 hit. I'd go to your place and then
Mhm.
Pegasus, and all of my
Nice.
all of my needs
Yeah.
would be met. So,
Yeah,
but the new
yeah.
space is gorgeous.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure the visibility of Main Street has been helpful in
Yeah,
all
it's
ways
been
for
really
you, just
nice.
really being able to find you. So, all
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This was a
Thank
great
you.
conversation, and I feel like I learned so much, and feel really open towards continuing to learn more. The heat has been lowered on any internal expectations that I should know all this already. So thank you so much. Um,
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
yeah, it was a blast. Thank you for being with us today. I hope you found this conversation as helpful as I did. We will be back next week with another guest. If you have topic ideas, questions that you would like answered on the air, or any other commentary to share with us, please send that to Courtney@shineandsoar.com, or you can fill out the contact form on shineandsoar.com/podcast. If you are loving this content, please share it with your friends, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts. We'll see you again real soon. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other.